Is the Shroud of Turin authentic? What is the Shroud, where did it come from, and what does science tell us about it? This is Dave from Fascinating Facts, and we are here to go through the data to see if the Shroud of Turin is the real burial shroud of Jesus of Nazareth. What is the Shroud of Turin? The Shroud of Turin is the world's most measured relic, and it is very mysterious because we don't know how it was made, and we cannot replicate the shroud today, even with our modern technology. The burial shroud contains the image of a real man who appears to have been crucified and then covered with the linen, which replicates Jewish customs from 1 AD onwards. The shroud is owned by the Catholic Church, and many people claim that the mysterious man is Jesus of Nazareth. How was the shroud made? Somehow the shroud has the imprint of a man's whole body, including his face and hair. The image on the linen is caused by a translucent and discontinuous yellow discoloration of the fibers. In the points where the image is present, the discoloration affects only 2 or 3 fibers on the topmost part of the threads of the cloth, which is 200 nanometers thick, and needs to be seen at a distance in order to be seen clearly. The shroud is thought to have been created by energy, and scientist John Jackson has reported that the formation of the shroud's image would take several billion watts of ultraviolet radiation. This is mind-blowing, because this level of radiation exceeds the maximum output of any source of UV radiation known today. There is also unlikely to have been any heat in this explosion of radiation, because if there was an accompanying heat energy, the cloth would have vaporized in less than 1/40th billionth of a second. So, the shroud was created by a method of ultraviolet energy that we cannot replicate in the 21st century. That really is a fascinating fact. How old is the shroud? The shroud did have a radiocarbon date in 1988 that was analyzed by the University of Oxford, the University of Arizona, and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. They concluded with 95% confidence that the shroud material dated to 1260 to 1390 AD. This initially settled the matter that the shroud was created by unknown means, and it appeared to have been made around the time it was first seen in public. However, only one area of the shroud was sampled, and in an area that was frequently touched over the years when it was exhibited. Essentially, the area that was sampled was heavily contaminated, and it was not a forensically clean area. Additionally, the area sampled had been repaired over the years with other fabrics and dyed to look similar to the shroud's original color. In 2019, scientists Casabianca, Marinelli, Pernigallo, and Torrisi published a research article discussing the radiocarbon dating. They concluded that it was fundamentally flawed in how it was conducted in terms of a single sampled area, and there was a lack of homogeneity in the samples tested, which means that there was a possible contamination of the sample. There was also no exploration of possible contamination over the years, or consideration of other possible ways that the radiocarbon dating could be altered, such as the shroud having been burnt in 1532, which can affect radiocarbon dating. However, a more recent study into the shroud has looked at X-raying the relic in order to establish its age. Liberato De Caro, Teresa Sibiano, Rocco Lissandro, Cinzia Giannini, and Giulio Fanti reported in 2022 that by using a sample of the Turin Shroud, they applied a new method for dating ancient linen threads by inspecting their structural degradation by means of wide-angle X-ray scattering, or WAX. The X-ray dating method was applied to a sample of the shroud consisting of a thread taken in proximity of the 1988 radiocarbon area, the corner of the TS corresponding to the feet area of the frontal image near the so-called Reyes sample. They obtained one-dimensional integrated waxes data profiles for the shroud sample, which were fully compatible with the analogous measurements obtained on a linen sample, whose dating, according to historical records, is 55 to 74 AD, at the Siege of Masada in Israel, meaning that the X-ray method confirmed that the shroud was made around the time of 55 to 74 AD. The degree of natural aging of the cellulose that constitutes the linen of the investigated sample, obtained by X-ray analysis, showed that the shroud fabric is much older than the 7 centuries proposed by the 1988 radiocarbon dating. The experimental results are compatible with the hypothesis that the shroud is a 2,000-year-old relic. Now that is a fascinating fact. Key facts about the Shroud of Turin. The shroud is rectangular, measuring approximately 4.4 by 1.1 meters or 14 feet 5 inches by 3 feet 7 inches. The cloth is woven in a 3-to-1 herringbone twill design, composed of flax fibrils. Its most distinctive characteristic is the faint brownish image of a front and back view of a naked man with his hands folded across his groin. The two views are aligned along the midplane of the body and point in opposite directions. The front and back views of the head nearly meet at the middle of the cloth. The image in faint straw yellow color on the crown of the cloth fibers appears to be of a man with a beard, mustache, and shoulder-length hair parted in the middle. The documented history of the shroud dates back to 1354, when it was exhibited in the new collegiate church of Lire, a village in north-central France. The shroud was denounced as a forgery by the Bishop of Troyes, Pierre d'Arcy, in 1389. It was acquired by the House of Savoy in 1453 and later deposited in a chapel in Chambéry, where it was damaged by fire in 1532. In 1578, the Savoys moved the shroud to their new capital in Turin, where it has remained ever since. Since 1683, it has been kept in the chapel of the Holy Shroud, which was designed for that purpose by architect Guarino Guarini, and which is connected to both the Royal Palace and the Turin Cathedral. Ownership of the shroud passed from the House of Savoy to the Catholic Church after the death of former King Umberto II in 1983. The mysterious man in the image is muscular and tall, with various experts measuring him as from 1.70 to 1.88 meters, or 5 feet 7 inches to 6 feet 2 inches. Reddish-brown stains are found on the cloth, correlating with the wounds in the biblical description of the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth. The shroud was damaged in a fire in 1532 in the chapel in Chambéry, France. There are some burn holes and scorched areas down both sides of the linen, caused by contact with molten silver during the fire that burned through it in places while it was folded. 14 large triangular patches and 8 smaller ones were sewn onto the cloth by Poor Clare's nuns to repair the damage.